Olivia Brown. I am 28 years old. And I have a younger sister named Mia, who is 22 years old. This is the story of our family's collapse. But at the same time, it is also a story of its rebirth. Now, I am sitting at my desk at work, staring blankly at the computer screen in front of me. The screen displays a record of bank transactions. No matter how many times I look at the large withdrawal amount listed there, I cannot accept it as reality. My hands are trembling, and anger and sadness swirl within my chest. On the desk sits a family photo. It showed my smiling parents, Mia and myself. That family photo now feels painfully ironic. I never imagined things would turn out this way. On the surface, our family was an ordinary middle-class household. My father, James, worked as a site supervisor at a local construction company. With his meticulous personality and solid skills, he earned the trust of his subordinates and was highly regarded at work. My mother, Charlotte, was employed as an administrative staff member at an elementary school. She was active in the PTA and well regarded in the community. We lived in an affordable house in the suburbs with our golden retriever, Cooper. On weekends, we went on family picnics, and during vacations, we traveled to nearby tourist destinations. It was the kind of family life you'd find anywhere. My father looked forward to setting up the barbecue grill in the yard on weekends and inviting the neighbors over for parties. My mother baked homemade apple pies, and when their aroma filled the house, it always made us feel happy. However, beneath that ordinary exterior, subtle dynamics were always at play. Looking back, it might have started when I entered elementary school. From a young age, I played the role of the responsible eldest daughter in our family. It was a role that naturally arose from my own personality. In elementary school, I often served as the class leader, earning the trust of my teachers. I always finished my homework by the deadline and consistently maintained top grades on tests. In middle school, I became the student council president and captained the swimming club, achieving victories in district tournaments. At 15, I started a part-time job at a fast food restaurant on weekends, earning my own pocket money. The first thing I bought with my paycheck was a beautiful scarf for my mother's birthday present. However, her reaction was unexpected. "Thank you, but you didn't have to push yourself to buy it," she said. And I remember feeling a sense of distance in her words. Meanwhile, Mia grew up as the idol of the family. She was friendly, cheerful, and could quickly get along with anyone. Her school grades were average, but her sunny personality earned her many friends, and our house was always lively with her friends visiting. Our parents showered her with what could be called overprotective love, granting nearly all her wishes. One particularly memorable difference was how our birthdays were celebrated. For Mia's birthday, there was always a big party, with many classmates invited. The yard was decorated with balloons, and a homemade cake was accompanied by a mountain of presents. In contrast, my birthdays were often celebrated modestly with the words, "You're an adult now." When I turned 12, I asked for a bright red bicycle. At the time, many of my classmates were commuting to school by bicycle, and I longed to join them. However, my parents dismissed it as extravagant. Instead, they gave me study guides as a gift. 3 years later, when Mia wanted a similar red bicycle, my parents immediately decided to buy it for her. Because she's still young, she needs a safe way to get around, they explained. The incident when I was 16 remains vividly etched in my memory. After saving diligently for more than 6 months, I finally had enough money to buy a new gaming console. I took on extra shifts on weekends, made my own lunches to save money, and worked tirelessly to save up. When I told my parents, they casually responded, "Oh, we bought that for Mia last week, so you can share it with her." They said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. 10-year-old Mia, oblivious to my feelings, was overjoyed. She monopolized the brand new console, and whenever I wanted to use it, she'd say, "I'm using it right now, so wait your turn." In the end, my savings were redirected into a fund for my education. Yet, strangely enough, I didn't resent my parents at the time. If anything, I believed that those experiences made me stronger. I discovered the joy of achieving things through my own efforts and learned the importance of financial independence. I excelled in high school and majored in finance in college. While my parents used some of my savings to help with tuition, they didn't cover everything. So I secured scholarships to pay for my education and moved out to live in a university dorm. Balancing part-time jobs with my studies, I steadily prepared for my future. During college, I worked part-time at the library and also tutored students on weekends. From early mornings to late nights, I juggled studying and working in a relentless cycle. Still, my passion for mastering financial expertise never waned. In my investment analysis classes, I consistently achieved top grades, earning praise from professors who would say, "You have a bright future ahead," while I led a busy and demanding life in college. Mia, now a middle school student, was thriving at home with full support from our parents. Whenever I returned home on weekends, the living room would almost always be filled with Mia's friends. The aroma of Mom's homemade cookies and brownies would fill the house, accompanied by the cheerful laughter of middle school girls echoing throughout. One particularly memorable event was when Mia joined the school drama club. She was cast as the lead in Snow White, which was to be performed at the school festival. Our parents immediately decided to enroll her in a professional acting class and spared no expense on her costume. Dad took time off work to help build the stage props, while Mom diligently drove Mia to and from rehearsals every day and practiced lines with her on weekends. If Mia wanted to go to the shopping mall with her friends, Mom happily drove her there, generously giving her money for her to spend as well. Her room steadily filled with new clothes and accessories, turning it into something akin to a boutique. When it came to academics, even if Mia scored poorly on tests, our parents were lenient, saying, "This isn't a big deal." When Mia proposed a fundraising project for the student council or participated in local cleanup activities instead, our parents beamed with pride, saying, "We're so glad she's growing up to value her connections with others." Once, when Mia failed her midterm math exam, scoring below the passing mark, our parents promptly hired a private tutor. When I offered to teach her myself, they gently declined, saying, "You're busy with your own studies, aren't you?" Eventually, one of Dad's colleagues' children came to our house twice a week to tutor Mia. For her 13th birthday, our parents threw a grand party. The yard was decorated with pink and white balloons, and a custom-made cake by a professional pastry chef was the centerpiece. Her entire class was invited, along with a few friends she had met at her cram school. The gift table was piled high with extravagant items, including the latest smartphone and a coveted designer handbag, luxuries even to my eyes. I watched this spectacle during a break from working on my university assignments, feeling a tangle of emotions. I adored my sister, but I couldn't help but be bewildered by the stark disparity in how we were treated. Mia basked in our parents' affection, glowing like a princess. Her smile was pure, and she seemed to take their devotion for granted. While I worked part-time at the library on weekends, Mia spent her time watching movies with friends or enjoying shopping trips. Whenever I saw Mia's social media posts, I couldn't help but think back to my own middle school days. It amazed me how two sisters born to the same parents could grow up in such vastly different environments. After graduating from college, I got a job as an analyst at a major investment bank. At 22, I became fully financially independent and started living alone in a small apartment. It wasn't uncommon for me to arrive at work by 7 a.m. and not leave until after 10 p.m., but the income made it worthwhile. My job mainly involved conducting financial analyses of emerging companies and preparing detailed reports for investment decisions. I received high evaluations from my supervisors and was entrusted with important projects by my third year at the company. Even on weekends, I voluntarily attended training sessions and continued studying to earn professional financial certifications. Meanwhile, Mia enrolled at a local state university. Her major was communications. Mia's college life seemed like something straight out of a coming-of-age drama. She immersed herself in club activities, partied with friends, and spent her summer vacations traveling abroad with financial support from our parents. While building my own life, I made an effort to maintain a connection with my family. I visited home once a month, had meals with my family, and listened to Mia's stories about her college life. Dad remained as passionate about gardening as ever, and Mom kept busy with community volunteer work. On the surface, our relationship seemed peaceful, but a subtle sense of unease lingered. This dynamic continued for several years. Around that time, I began noticing a shift in my parents' attitude toward my work. Up until then, they had shown little interest in my job, but suddenly they started making unsolicited remarks. When they asked about my work, I honestly shared stories about my promotions and awards. However, their response was always, "You're working so much, but what about marriage?" At the same time, Mia was struggling with her job search. Mom always responded to Mia's complaints with words of encouragement like, "You're such a hard worker," or "I'm sure you'll find the perfect job." Looking back, I wonder if seeing Mia struggle with her job search made my parents want to bring me down a notch. This spring, Mia finally graduated from college and secured a position at an event planning company. I was genuinely proud of her and decided to celebrate her graduation by gifting her the latest laptop she had been wanting. It cost the equivalent of 3 months of my salary, but I wanted to mark the beginning of her new life with something special. Mia was thrilled with the gift, but my parents' reaction was unexpected. "You didn't have to buy something so expensive. Are you trying to show off to your sister?" Their words left me deeply disappointed. What was meant as a gesture of celebration had been misinterpreted negatively. One day, I received an excited phone call from Mom. I was walking through the office district on a pleasant spring afternoon, listening to her voice over the phone. "Olivia, I have wonderful news." Her voice was full of excitement. "What happened?" "Mia is engaged." I was stunned. I knew Mia was seeing someone, but I hadn't heard anything about marriage. The man, as I'd heard, worked for a local real estate company and had met Mia through their church. "And," Mom continued eagerly, "we've planned the perfect gift for her." "Wow, that sounds wonderful," I replied casually. It wasn't unusual for my parents to do something special for Mia. "Yes, we withdrew $20,000 from your account using your debit card. It's for Mia's wedding expenses." The moment I heard those words, it felt as if my entire world came to a halt. The warmth of the spring day and the bustling noise of the street faded into the distance. What did you just say?" I couldn't believe my ears. Standing amidst the bustling office district, I felt my knees begin to tremble. "The money's already been spent," Mom said brightly, as though sharing some good news. "We found the perfect wedding dress, and we've already paid the deposit for the wedding venue. The coordinator said this date will be booked up in no time, so we decided on the spot." I was at a loss for words. Mom began casually detailing how she had drained my savings, as though discussing the weather. The dress was $6,000, the venue deposit $5,000, and another $3,000 for the reception decorations deposit. She cheerfully continued her calculations. "I found your PIN in the notebook in your desk drawer," it said, "for emergencies." And Mia's wedding is an emergency, isn't it? I had indeed written down my PIN for emergencies, but I had tucked it away in a drawer, deeply hidden. It was meant for situations like accidents or medical emergencies, not for this. I never imagined my parents would find it and use it without my consent. "Mom, this is illegal," I said, my voice shaking. "Using my money without even consulting me, it's a crime." I stopped in my tracks amidst the crowd bustling along the street. My head was spinning, and I could feel my breaths growing shallow. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," Mom said with a light laugh. That laugh wounded me even more deeply. We're family, aren't we? A wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Besides, everything's already booked. Canceling now would cost even more, wouldn't it? I was speechless. Every word she uttered felt like a knife piercing my heart. Summoning what strength I had left, I replied, "This is a crime. I will make sure every penny is returned." Before she could say anything further, I ended the call. This wasn't just about money. It was about years of unfair treatment and the betrayal of trust. It felt as if my very existence was being denied. After hanging up, I went to the office restroom and cried for what felt like hours. The reflection staring back at me in the mirror was a mess, tears streaking down my face. That $20,000 had taken me 3 years to save. I had worked tirelessly from early mornings to late nights, taken on extra shifts on weekends, and minimized my own expenses just to build up that fund. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in bed, replaying my conversation with Mom over and over in my head. My chest felt as though it were being crushed. As I lay there, my eyes fell on the family photo hanging on the wall of my apartment. Memories of Christmas gatherings, vacation trips, and countless birthday parties flooded back like a slideshow. What once seemed like happy moments now carried a bitter, ironic tone. The next morning, before I left for work, I received a call from Dad. The ringing of my phone in the early morning, just as the sun began to rise, set my heart racing. I hadn't even had my coffee yet. "Olivia, I heard from your mother." Dad's voice was harsher than usual. In the background, I could hear the familiar hum of the lawn mower. Even when angry, Dad never skipped his daily yard work. "Why are you making such a big fuss?" His words made it sound as though I was the one being unreasonable. "Are you seriously saying the same thing as Mom?" I asked, disbelief evident in my voice. Outside my window, I watched the rush of people heading to work. "This is a crime. Using my money without my consent is illegal. You're overreacting." Dad interrupted. His tone was the same as when he used to scold me as a child. "We're family. You should be more supportive of your sister." Support? I already gave Mia a laptop as a gift for starting her new job. But that was my choice. It's completely different from taking my money without permission. My voice was trembling. Speaking on a crowded commuter train, I tried my best to suppress my tone so others wouldn't overhear. "When did you become so cold?" Dad's voice was heavy with disappointment. Those words pierced my heart like a venomous sting. "You weren't like this before. The Olivia I knew wouldn't have acted this way." Something inside me broke at those words. Years of suppressed emotions surged out like a dam finally bursting. The old me? "Dad, I've always worked hard on my own. Neither you nor Mom ever did anything for me. But you've given Mia everything." I struggled to keep my voice from breaking. "Are you really bringing up those old stories again?" Dad's irritation was palpable. The sound of the lawn mower suddenly stopped. "You need to stop comparing yourself to your sister." After he hung up, I couldn't stop the tears from flowing. Before reaching the office, I rushed to the restroom to fix my ruined makeup. The face staring back at me in the mirror looked utterly exhausted. It hit me hard. My parents truly didn't understand how I felt. That afternoon, I contacted the bank. After reviewing the transaction history, it was clear my parents had used my PIN to withdraw the money. The banker spoke sympathetically but explained that since the correct PIN had been entered, it technically didn't qualify as unauthorized access. Still, I refused to give up. That weekend, after much deliberation, I decided to report the incident to the police. On my way to the station, I passed a park where I had once walked with my parents as a child. A photo from that day still hangs in the living room of their house. The contrast between those memories and the present reality was almost unbearable. This decision to report them wasn't made on impulse. The night before, I had stayed up late, sitting on my apartment balcony, lost in thought. With the city's noise fading into the distance and a vast starry sky above, I confronted my life and my choices. This wasn't just about money. It was about my dignity as a person. As I approached the police station, a final wave of hesitation washed over me. I stopped at the steps leading to the entrance, my eyes catching sight of a cross atop the church across the street. The cross resembled the one at the church I used to attend with my parents as a child. For a moment, I hesitated, but I took a deep breath and stepped forward. As I opened the heavy door, I was met with a calm reception area, where a uniformed officer looked at me with a gentle expression. "What can I do for you?" Hearing that, I felt a small sense of relief. "I'd like to report unauthorized money withdrawals by my family," I said. My voice trembled, but deep inside, I felt a growing sense of resolve. Inside the station, I explained the situation in detail to a young female officer. My hands shook with nervousness, but she listened intently, maintaining a serious expression. While taking notes, she occasionally nodded and gave me a kind, understanding look. "Family-related financial disputes like this aren't uncommon," she explained. "But that's precisely why it's important to handle them firmly. Being family doesn't justify illegal actions." The police took the matter seriously and decided to question my parents about the incident. As they prepared the report, I sat on one of the station's hard chairs, contemplating what lay ahead. What would my parents say? How would Mia react? What about their reputation in the community? A flood of worries washed over me one after another. Later that evening, I received a call informing me that a police vehicle had arrived at my parents' house. Outside my window, the sun was setting, and the streetlights were beginning to flicker on one by one. In the living room of their home, my parents were surely shocked by the officer's visit. The mere thought of it made my chest tighten, but I reminded myself there was no turning back. After the police got involved, events began to unfold rapidly. My parents were interrogated under suspicion of fraud, and the matter was eventually resolved through civil court. The court ruled that my parents must repay the full $20,000 they had unlawfully withdrawn. They fiercely resisted. "We don't have that kind of money. Repayment is impossible." They argued as though I were an ungrateful daughter, undeserving of sympathy. Dad, who was only a few years away from retirement, adamantly refused to take on new debt. Mom, through tears, accused me, saying, "How could you betray your family like this?" What surprised me, however, was Mia's reaction. Amid the busy preparations for her wedding, she came to visit me at my office. "Olivia, I'm so sorry," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. "This is all because of me." Mia admitted that what our parents had done was wrong and apologized for her unwitting involvement. Her fiancé also expressed understanding and offered to help repay the money little by little as a couple. I was deeply moved by Mia's sincerity. While I still harbored anger over the years of unfair treatment, that anger was directed at our parents, not at Mia herself. "Mia, this isn't your fault. This is about our parents," I told her. We embraced, sharing our feelings and bridging the emotional gap that had grown between us over the years. However, my relationship with my parents deteriorated beyond repair. Though they promised to make monthly installment payments, they failed to honor that commitment. Instead, they spread stories among relatives and acquaintances, painting me as a heartless daughter and casting themselves as victims. In the end, I made the decision to cut ties with my parents. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was a necessary one to protect my own life and well-being. The day I went back to retrieve my belongings from the house, Mom stood silently by the second-floor window, watching me. Dad immersed himself in his yard work, completely ignoring my presence. The house, once filled with warm memories, now felt cold and distant. It has been 6 months since then. On weekends, I regularly meet with Mia, and we've grown closer as sisters. She has helped clear up misunderstandings among our relatives and acquaintances. When they learned that our parents had taken my money without permission and failed to honor their promise of repayment, they distanced themselves from my parents. I am currently moving forward with legal proceedings for enforcement. Once approved, appropriate actions, such as freezing their bank accounts, will be taken. At work, I've been promoted and entrusted with greater responsibilities. On my days off, I've taken up photography as a hobby and started connecting with new friends. My relationship with my parents may never be repaired. Still, I believe I made the right choice. Sometimes, parting ways with family marks the beginning of a new life, and I've come to understand that now. Whenever I pass by the neighborhood near my childhood home, I still feel a twinge of pain. But it's no longer the intense anger or sorrow I once felt. It has softened into a gentle wistfulness. We all have the freedom to choose our own path, even if that path means saying goodbye to the people we once loved.